Hey guys, Sarah Halina here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Eternals, so stay tuned. Alright, so first I'm going to go into my non-spoiler thoughts, so that way if you haven't seen Eternals yet, you're maybe on the fence about it, you can hear what I thought without being spoiled. Then I'm going to look at some plot points and give my thoughts on those. And for that, there will be spoilers. And then I'm going to be going into the different characters that we got and basically giving my feelings about them. So, first, non-spoilers, then plot spoilers, then character spoilers. Okay. So, Eternals is a movie that follows a new team of heroes who have been living on Earth for thousands of years. They're basically these immortal beings with unique superpowers, and their main mission is to destroy the deviants. And then once they've done that, they can go on and move on with their lives. But essentially, when the deviants return, they have to reconnect and come back together to join forces to defeat them. Yeah. The movie takes place over several different timelines, and it kind of bounces between them in many ways. They do tell you when and where they are with, like, text on the bottom corner of the screen. So that's helpful, but yeah, something to keep in mind. Also, another thing to keep in mind, the lighting is pretty dark overall. Like, even in, like, the daytime scenes, like, it was pretty dark. It got to the point where I had to, like, adjust the brightness on my TV to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So, yeah, keep that in mind as well. It's a fine movie. It was better than I expected, but then again, I kind of had low expectations going into this movie, like, so take that as you will. I think that there are plenty of things that were good about this movie, and plenty of things that just weren't. There is some setup for the future, mainly in the post-credit scenes, but overall, the movie itself kind of feels like its own movie that kind of references past MCU movies. But if you start watching the movie and you're like, yeah, this isn't for me, I'm not enjoying this, and you stop watching, you're not going to miss much. It's very kind of contained in its own self, except for the post-credit scene that kind of sets up the future of the MCU in both post-credit scenes. So, yeah. Overall, I would say it's not mandatory MCU watching, but I'd say it's on Disney Plus. Give it a shot. Yeah. So now I'm going to be diving into spoilers. So if you haven't seen Eternals yet, go watch it, come back here, hear what I thought. I will be spoiling things. So first I'm going to talk about, like, getting to know the Eternals, because that's sort of, like, something that happens throughout the movie. Like, you're getting to know them throughout the movie. It's not just in the beginning, like, they build to it type thing. Getting to see them in the past, fighting the deviants throughout time, and all that sort of thing. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Getting to see where they ended up in the present day was also kind of fun. But I feel like because there were so many characters, some of them fell through the cracks and didn't get as much of a story as I think they could have. In particular, Makari. I feel like Makari was in this movie, but yeah, she kind of had significantly less, story exploration and character exploration done with her than really any of the other Eternals. So it was kind of fun to see them in different parts of history and, in the present day and all that, but because there were so many of them, a lot of them kind of fell through the cracks, and that's not great. The relationship between the Eternals was fine. I really enjoyed Gilgamesh and Thena's dynamic. I think they had my favorite dynamic out of everybody. Their friendship, maybe something more. I don't know. It was just beautiful. But much like the characters and getting to know them, because there was so many, a lot of the relationships, whether they were, friendship or romantic or familial even, it wasn't really, explored all that well because they had specific amount of time and they had a whole lot of characters to play with, and some dynamics were explored a lot and some were kind of non-existent. So, yeah. The Deviants, I think, were an interesting antagonist. Essentially, the Eternal suffers from the whole overpowered characters and what can essentially stop overpowered characters. And I think having the Deviants be these creatures that are super powerful within their own right, but also allowing them to absorb powers of other people, kind of made them the perfect foe to essentially these all-powerful Eternals. Something I was really skeptical of was how this movie was going to tackle the fact that the Eternals were absent for all the destruction within the MCU. Ultron, Thanos, Loki, Hela. Granted, Hela was Ragnarok. But, all these big catastrophic events on a basically galactic level, the Eternals just weren't a part of it. So that was something this movie really had to kind of, explain, essentially. And I don't really know how good of a job they did. I think, one thing that they did do a good job of was showing that, they did kind of want to interfere. Especially Druid, he wanted to interfere and stop the anger and the hurt and the war and everything, essentially. He wanted to make everybody just a peaceful humanity. Life would have been great. But essentially was told that he couldn't. But also, the movie had to tackle why the Eternals are acting now. Because they didn't act through anything else, so why are they acting now? And I think creating the birth of a Celestial that would essentially destroy the planet, make it extinct, and seeing that a lot of the Eternals had developed a love for humanity, mainly Cersei, I think, watching the fact that there was this thing that could literally wipe out the people that the Eternals cared about, was kind of a good reason or at least a good enough reason to have them jump in. Ultimately, was their whole explanation of why they didn't interfere in the past and why they're interfering now perfect? No, it definitely wasn't. But it made enough sense for me to just kind of roll with it. And also, side note, Thanos, he was actually a hero when he snapped out half the universe. Who knew? One of the things that I really loved, though, was the conflicted feelings that the Eternals were having in regards to stopping the emergence of the Celestial. I mean, they've been told this is what they're supposed to do. This is literally what they exist for. And despite all that, they've developed a love for the people of the planet. And to me, I think Kingo's stance in particular was kind of the most reasonable, I guess, in a way. He kind of took like the Switzerland role. Like, I'm neutral. Like, you have the Eternals over here that are trying to stop the celestial birth. Then you have Icarus and Sprite being like, no, we gotta let this happen. This is what we're supposed to do. And Kingo's just like, no. I'm not going to help you stop the emergence, but I'm not gonna kill my fellow Eternals just to let it happen. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm going to be neutral. And honestly, in many ways, Kingo's stance on the whole thing made the most sense. The betrayal of Icarus. Yeah, he was working against them the whole time. And ironically, it kind of made sense. Like, he really was the one that seemed to distance himself from humanity. Like, he didn't get involved with the people. Like, Cersei became, like, a teacher. I think that's what she was supposed to be. Kingo created a whole, like, Bollywood empire. Like, literally, like, a whole dynasty. Like, he was his grandfather, his father, him, right? And he was playing all the roles because he's immortal, so why not? But Icarus really was the one that was kind of off in the shadows. Like, he didn't get involved. He didn't bond with humanity. And so, yes, he took it to the extreme by trying to kill the Eternals because they wanted to stop the emergence, but also, in his mind, it was, this is what we were trained to do. This is what we exist for. And I don't care about humanity. You all went and you bonded with them. That's your problem. I didn't. So I'm okay with letting them die. Yeah. And I think also just, like, I'm a sucker for people seeming like they're on, the same side as the heroes and then ultimately not being on their side for, like, the whole time, like, working against them the whole time. So I think that's why I really kind of enjoyed Icarus's betrayal, because it made sense and I'm just a sucker for that stuff. So the way the Eternals stopped the celestial birth, however, was kind of very odd. Like, they created a unimind, so combining all the Eternals' minds into one, and it gave them the power to stop the emergence. There was a lot of explaining. I didn't catch it all. But kind of ironically, it made sense. Like, because at the beginning of the movie, they explained that the Eternals are far more technologically advanced and just more advanced in general than we are. So this creating the Unimind and allowing that to stop the birth kind of made sense in that line. I wish there wasn't a whole lot of explanation that you had to kind of take in order for it to actually fully make sense. And I don't even know if it does. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. The Mad Weary plot. Oh my goodness. This one, I literally don't even know what to think of this anymore. Like, yes, it was fun to see Thena flip out and everyone trying to stop her, but to me, they never did a good job of explaining, like, why Thena was the only one that had this. Like, essentially, it's a condition that Eternals can face, because of memories of centuries of a lifetime, just kind of live in their head, and it drives them to insanity. But like I said, Thena was the only one suffering from it. Like, they were all created together, but only Thena's going insane. And it's like, why? And like, is it because the other Eternals had their memories erased? But if that's the case, then why didn't Thena have her memory erased? Like, I know that she said she didn't want her memories gone. But in theory, it seems like that's something that they could have forced on her, I guess. I don't know. To me, they didn't do a good job of explaining, in particular, why Thena was the only one that was suffering from it. Yeah. I just wish they did a better job of explaining it, but we didn't even have time to develop characters. So, I guess that was too much to ask. The fight choreography was pretty good. I don't think it was the best fight choreography in terms of MCU movies, but I do really enjoy the fact that each of the Eternals had their own unique fighting style. So that kind of helped a little bit. But, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't, like, the best. So, yeah. The death of Ajax. Ooh. So, when the trailers were released, I was very excited about Ajax. I mean, Salma Hayek. How can you go wrong? And then the movie's like, nah, she dead. Okay. Now, her death does set the Eternals up for where they go in the rest of the movie. So I guess in that regard, I didn't mind it. I also kind of like the fact that Icarus was the one that killed her because she was having doubts about allowing the emergence to happen. Like, yeah. Cersei and Sprite's reactions to seeing her dead was just heartbreaking. Like, watching Cersei struggle with taking up the role of leader in succession to Ajax was a big part of the plot. But, like I said, she dead. So we didn't get a whole lot of time with her. And for that reason, not too fond of it. The death of Gilgamesh. So, unlike Ajax's death, where, Icarus was the one responsible and Sprite and Cersei were the only ones who actually saw her dead, everyone was there to see Gilgamesh dead, and again, just so heartbreaking. Like, Thena's reaction was just gut-wrenching. Like, watching her cry over the fact that the one person who was by her side while she suffered from, mad weary or whatever. It's just the fact that he was gone. Like, he was the one Eternal that took responsibility over her so that she could keep her memories, which is what she wanted, and she was right there and she couldn't help him. And it was just heartbreaking. And also, I love Gilgamesh. I wanted more Gilgamesh. It's the same situation as Ajax. I'm like, we didn't get nearly enough time with them, and it's like, but I want time with them. Oh. The death of Icarus. Okay. So I ain't mad. Icarus, bye. The one thing that I didn't particularly like about Icarus's death was he got off way too easy. Like, he tried to kill the Eternals so that the emergence could happen. When he failed, he flew into the sun. What? Like, you tried to kill the people that were essentially your family. And we're just gonna fly into the sun because I didn't get my way. Okay. Like I said, not mad that he's gone. We got quite a bit of time with him. He was the villain, all that fun stuff. But I would have preferred that he live and try to come to grips with the fact that he failed and, maybe try to make amends with the other Eternals, for trying to murder them. But, it was the end of the movie, so no time for that. Overall, I think the one big thing this movie suffers from is it's very odd pacing. Like, the first, let's say, 3/4 of the movie is slower and does a lot of world building and introducing the Eternals, and some of it they do a good job with, some of it they don't, all of that. But then you get to, like, the last quarter of the movie and it's like, well, we're just gonna hit 2 times speed and see what happens. Like, the last quarter of the movie, they're just flying through everything, and it's like, I feel like we could have paced this out better. It was a really odd pacing, and I don't know. The first post-credit scene, because there's 2. So the first post-credit scene shows Thena, Makari, and Druig going to search for more Eternals and tell them that they were helping hatch baby Celestials and not protecting planets. But then we see that Pip the Troll arrives and announces brother of Thanos, Eros, aka Star Fox. And he basically gives them a warning that their friends are in trouble. He knows where to find them. And that's it. It was a fun scene. Kind of sets up the future, I guess. Maybe not as directly as the second post-credit scene, but I mean, it was a fine post-credit scene. I think it worked. Yeah. The second post-credit scene shows Dane, Cersei's human boyfriend, in his office. He's basically told Cersei, like, hey, my family's history is kind of complicated. But then she's abducted by Erisham. So, yeah, basically he's in his office. He's psyching himself up to open a mysterious box. And when he does, there is a sword. There's a sword. And when Dane reaches for the sword, a voice that we don't see who it belongs to asks if he's ready for it. Now, The voice that we heard has been confirmed to be Blade, who will be starring in a upcoming MCU movie. I have no idea when Blade is supposed to come out, but yeah. So that was Blade asking him whether he was ready for whatever the sword brings. Again, setting up the future of the MCU. It was an interesting scene. I think it was a more direct way to set up the future of the MCU because we know that Blade is happening. So we know that we'll probably be seeing Dane again. People are predicting maybe a Moon Knight. But at the very least, I presume he will maybe show up in Blade. I don't know. But, yeah. Now diving into my thoughts on the characters. So first up, we got Ajax. So, Ajax, the leader who later realizes that their mission should change and maybe not destroy a planet for a celestial birth. Good idea. She's a fine character. Didn't get much with her compared to some of the other Eternals, but what we did see of her, I liked her. I wish we got more, but odds are not likely. But I don't know. Maybe she'll show up again. I don't know. Cersei, Ajax's successor to leadership. Cersei was a pretty good character. Like I really enjoyed Cersei. She was charming from the beginning. She continued to grow on me throughout the movie. And I really liked her. Icarus. Boy. Okay. I don't dislike Icarus. But I don't particularly like him either. Like, he was in quite a lot of the movie, obviously. But I feel like we never really got to know him, and I don't know if that was on purpose or whether that was like everybody else and kind of fallen through the cracks a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. But kind of middle tier, favorite, not favorite, middle tier. Gilgamesh. Seriously, I love Gilgamesh. He just has such a big heart, and I really, really wish they hadn't killed him off because he's one of the characters that I really, really wanted to see more of. Not just in this movie, but maybe in future movies. Like, Gilgamesh, I love you. Thena. I love Thena. Thena is probably my favorite of this whole movie. And again, Angelina Jolie. So, that may have something to do with it. But I want to be Thena. She is such a fierce warrior and just, I don't know. I love her. Not keen on her Mad Weary plot, but, whatever. And I think if it wasn't for the Mad Weary, I think she would have been a great candidate to be leader of the Eternals. Makkari. Okay. I kind of brought Makkari up in my thoughts on the character exploration. We did not get a lot of Makkari. And honestly, that makes me sad because Makkari seemed like an interesting character from what we did see of her. But literally, like, she's in, like, the flashback scenes, I guess. But she doesn't do much in those. She's just sort of there. And then the whole movie goes on. And then, like, at the end, we see her again. But again, she's just there. And it's like, why? Like, I don't get it. Like, Makari got robbed in this movie. Like, she had, like, no screen time, and that's just, Druig. Now, I felt bad for Druig at the beginning when he was told he couldn't mind control humans to play nice with each other. Yeah, I mean, if we could have avoided all the wars that we had, I don't know. But, then he kind of has this whole cultish situation going on where it seems like he's running a cult of some sort, and I'm like, I don't feel like that's the way to go either. I mean, I guess he was a compelling character. I wouldn't mind seeing him again. We probably will. But I felt like they didn't really do much with him either. Sprite. Okay. Sprite was kind of annoying for most of the movie. And I get it. Sprite is a child. And she has been basically since the dawn of time. No explanation as to why. Like, no one knows why. Seems like something we could have had answered. But, you know, whatever. I get that it would suck being a child forever. I sympathize with her situation. I guess the saving grace was she wasn't annoying all the time. But there were plenty of times where she was just really getting on my nerves. And I don't think we'll see her again because of her end fate of basically being gifted, you know, the ability to grow up. I don't know whether that removed her powers or what. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really care for Sprite. I feel like they could have written her less annoyingly. But we got what we got. Fastos. No. I adored Fastos. I loved his struggle with wanting to help humanity evolve faster. And then, you know, of course, we have the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. And he's like, nah, screw the humans. Like, just screw the humans. They cannot be good. All of that disappears. But even after all of that and him just giving up on the human race, he was kind of leading the charge almost to help the fellow Eternals stop the emergence and save the humans. Maybe it was him falling in love with his husband and having their son, and, you know, maybe he saw that, yes, humans can be bad, but humans can also be good. I don't know, but I love Fastos, and maybe we'll see more of him? I don't know. Kingo. Kingo was a lot of fun. Like, I loved Kingo too. Like, just the idea that he created this family dynasty within Bollywood, where he was his grandfather, and then his father, and then himself, and he's just like, I am taking advantage of this eternal life that I have been granted. I am going to literally create a dynasty that spans generations. Good for him. Like, honestly. But I also really love the fact that he was the one in the middle of the Eternals. Like, didn't want to stop the emergence, didn't want to let it happen. He didn't want to kill the Eternals. Icarus was like, then you're no good to me. Like, I want to kill these people. But Kingo was a lot of fun, and I really particularly loved his bond with Karun, his valet. I will be getting to him later. Ereshkigal. This dude, being celestial, whatever he is, he was so one note, it wasn't even funny. Like, he had one mission, allow the emergence and destroy the planets, because why not? There wasn't much to him. Like, it's like he just existed to create problems. And we will probably see him again, given his promise at the end of the movie that he will give humanity a chance. But honestly, I'd be happy if we never saw him again, because I did not care about him at all. Crow. Now, Crow is the leader of the Deviants, and the only one who got a name. So, there's that. I mean, he was interesting enough, I guess. But I'm also not mad that Halina killed him. Like, I think I cheered when she killed him. I was like, yes! Yeah. He was more interesting than Ereshkigal. Not by much. But now we're back to Karun. Now, like I said, I loved his dynamic with Kingo. Like, that was a whole lot of fun. Like, being Kingo's valet and everything, like, he was the main human. Like, he wasn't the only human, but he was the main human that we saw in this movie, and just his reaction to everything going on, like, they're in the middle of, like, big, huge battles, and he's like, yeah, but what about the action shots? Because we're working on creating a documentary about the Eternals over here, and we need action shots, so I'm in danger, but I don't care. He was so much fun too. Like, him and Kingo, they created some of the best scenes in this movie, honestly. Dane. Now, Dane is the human that we saw quite a bit, but still not a whole lot. Like, he was middle tier in terms of time we got with humans. He was fine throughout the movie when we saw him. Like, we barely had enough time to develop the Eternals. We definitely didn't have time to develop, side characters that were clearly going somewhere in the future. But it's that future and that promise of the future that is most intriguing about Dane. Ben. Ben is Phastos' husband. We didn't get to see much of him, but I guess he was fine. Like, I guess he was maybe in, like, all of maybe 5 minutes, and that's being generous, of this movie. So, yeah. He didn't do much. We didn't see much of him. I'm guessing he's fine. Phastos loves him, so. Jack. Now, Jack is Phastos and Ben's son. And oh my goodness, was he just so adorable. Like, I loved watching him meet the other Eternals, especially Icarus, when he's like, hey, it's Superman! And, like, Thena, like, it's like, what are your powers? And she just, like, creates her, like, sword thing, and it's just, like, I loved just how adorable he was. And while we got more scenes with him than we did with Ben, we still didn't get to see a whole lot of Jack, but he was adorable, so he's got that going for him. Pip. He was in the post-credits scene. he announced Eros. That's it. I mean, we'll probably see more of him in the future. Maybe develop more of an opinion of him when we do see more of him. But right now, we'll put him in the fine category. Eros, Thanos' brother. Much like Pip, we didn't see much of him. But we know he's Thanos' brother. He's a fellow Eternal. He knows where the other Eternals are. We will probably be seeing him in the future too. And then I will develop my opinion of him at that point. But like Pip, he's in the fine category. Yeah, so that's it for my spoilery thoughts on everything. Overall, there is a lot going on in this movie, and yet really not much happening all at the same time. That doesn't make much sense, but I think it does if you've seen this movie. Overall, I would say it's a fine movie. Like I said, better than I thought it would be. It's not saying much, but I wouldn't necessarily put it on bottom tier, but it definitely is not going on the top tier. That would probably say lower middle tier. Because it wasn't the worst MCU movie, but definitely not up there with the best. So, yeah. Overall, I think it would have made a better Disney Plus series than a movie. That way they could, focus on developing the characters and the story, because even the characters that got quite a bit of development, I feel like weren't fully fleshed out the way they could have been if this had been a Disney Plus series of 6 to 9 episodes. Yeah, that's just me. But anyways, what did you all think of Eternals, and who was your favorite character? I think mine has to be Thena. Do you think Eternals would have been better as a Disney Plus series instead of a movie, or even before a movie? I don't know. Let me know all your thoughts about Eternals in the comments down below. And if you like this video, leave a like, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you can be notified when I upload my latest videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye, guys.